welcome
We hear
everyone
you.
again to this um, this week of our Stopping the Violence webinar. We do it every week on Wednesday from 2 to 3. So we want to welcome all our brothers and sisters who have come. Anyone new, please reach out to others to join us in these very innovative conversations that we have been having. And we just don't want to leave it as just innovative, but we want to have these conversations so they can be a bridge to formulating actions that can make us what I always love to goal for, and that is sustainable and measurable differences, especially in the communities that are at risk and all of the other entities that are connected to violence in America, violence in the communities, and those inanimate objects that are used for violence, and especially now for guns. And so I just had a brother from Baltimore in my office a few seconds ago, and he was educating me, edifying me on this whole talk or this whole street lingo that's out there. The state, he said, is our something like the state is our enemy. And what it's saying is that this this confirms why we need to have guns and why we need to perpetuate violence. But I'll let him explain. He's with Safe Cities in Baltimore. Today, I have two special guests, brothers that I have worked. VJ, we've been Reverend Smith. We've been discussing many things together, and of course, Pastor Stevie Burke, who is on as well. We're going to have VJ Smith to come on, and of course, the topic today is healing our community and taking it on the road. But brother Stevie, Pastor Stevie, I work with a lot. But in the past, before we start this Stop the Violence webinar, we were having our own webinars, if you will, Reverend VJ, and the topic was always the mental health in the African American community, which we realize it also plays a very intricate and very significant role in the dysfunction in our community that we do not address enough or have people to help us address and provide a platform for the healing that can come through dealing with the issues of mental health in our community. And so Pastor Burke has come on over the year, 2 years ago or so, when we were having those webinars and seminars via by Zoom. But we have our dear brother VJ Smith. He has a short time to be here, so I want to introduce you. Everybody knows who he is. I'm just a little ignorant community activist and a speaker. He'll tell you all that he does. But one of the things that I asked him to come on specifically is why it's necessary in this juncture of history to take it on the road. Welcome, my brother. Good to see you always.
Hey, welcome, Dr. Oliver. Man, let me tell you something. We're going to have to check our ancestry because, we think a lot alike. I think I'm your cousin or something, But let me say this. I got a question. And I think this would be a great show. What happened? What happened to the crack babies and the Ritalin babies and all those babies that we put on drugs in our school system and all those mothers that had those babies that were induced with alcohol syndrome and all that? What happened to those babies? We study everything else. We study everything to death, but there's never been a study about what happened to those babies. Those babies are grown now. Those babies are shooters now. Those babies are killers now. And if there was ever a study about what happened to those babies, we would find out why a lot of the violence is going on in our community. I just want to give you that, Dr. Oliver, because I know you're going to take it and you're going to do something with it. Okay? What'd you say? Okay. Okay. You now, so can you still hear me?
Loud and clear. Very
Okay.
clear. We hear
So
you.
so let me say this. Um, the thing that I love about our conversations is that we always go back in history and we always take it back into what happened and how did we get where we are today. Some of the brightest and wisest innovators of outreach, of community intervention have been invented by us to help us. And what we talked about before is that if you give us a 2-year grant, we will do well for 2 years. If you give us a 1-year grant, we'll do well for 1 year. But if we begin to sustain ourselves and figure out how to sustain ourselves, look at Lutheran social services, look at Catholic charities, look at Goodwill Industry. We've never been able to build up capital and to be an entity like that in the United States of America for one reason. It's because it's not designed to do that. And that's the reason why we need to take this on the road, teach, educate, motivate our people to say, find our resources, find the capital, invest in our community, learn how to do it in a way to where we are able to be sustainable, and not only sustainable, but able to produce a product. One of the things I learned early on is that people that invest in you want to see the numbers. They want to see statistics. So many times we do the work good, but we don't bring the right people on to do the statistics. The healing has to happen. We're so busy putting out fires that we don't have enough time to heal, or we can't find the money to pay for the people that know how to heal our people best. Many times we send our young people to psychiatrists and the kids say, I don't understand what they're talking about. They don't understand me. I don't understand them. We have to be able to send our kids to people that can help them understand and help them heal. The only way we're going to do that is to build up an army of people that are at the ready. Before we talked about Dr. Oliver, what do we do with our incarcerated males? We use them. They come from the street. We put them back on. We read. We dedicate them. We change their lives. We spiritually motivate them. We make them fathers again. We put them back on the streets to turn others' lives around. That model has worked. That model will work. But every time, if a person comes out of incarceration and every door they go to is closed, or they get a temporary fix, we'll get you a job for a couple of months. They really can't hire you for the rest of your time, or we'll have you do something that you hate doing. So eventually you go back to the streets. We need to use these men that are gifted and talented that can take our kids and turn them around. Not only take them and turn them around, but mentor them and love on them. So when we
Mm.
talk about the mental health piece, we talk about the street outreach. You can't just put anybody on the streets. These young brothers are smart and they want somebody that they can respect to tell them when to put the guns down, tell them how to squash the beef in the community, tell them that, look, it's not cool to kick in somebody's house and take their stuff. We'll figure out another way. You can't make $800 an hour because that's not realistic. But we can make $20 an hour and we'll show you how to do that. And once you show them with some love and compassion, I've seen young men turn their lives around and do the right thing for the rest of their lives. We can do that. We got what it takes.
Thank you. That is so critical. I think one of the critical pieces that you're sharing and you have shared is love. You know, a lack of love, and I think I addressed that in our last. And I will keep reiterating that. That's the conversation that I have with this young man who's been in the street. He's been on Ted Koppel's show. He's been, and I'm going to have him on as well. But he was saying the core of all of that. He's been in the streets for a long time. He mentioned the same word. He said, "No one loves us."
And the
Love.
fact is that no one's designed to love us. The design ain't about love. The design is about making it look like we love you. We don't love you. Well, we'll make it look like we love you. when there's a war on drugs, was there any sense of love about that? No, there was no. It was about arresting. It wasn't about figuring out, okay, we know whether y'all bringing the drugs in. So you're not, there's no war on drugs. There was a war on the minority to community to arrest people in the community. That's what the war was about, to destroy the king of the families. And so we got to start looking at ourselves as kings. You know, Dr. Oliver, we can take you in the hood right now, and if you say, "Hey, what's up, brother?" and do your fist like that, they'd be like, "Man, you ain't my brother." We have we have lost the psyche of the even that we are brothers. We are brothers. You got to talk to a brother that was born in the 50s or 60s for him to even say, "What's up, brother?" You know, because we get it. We said that. We've been saying that. You know, I have hugged gangbangers, and they're like, "Dude, I ain't gay, brother. Look, it ain't about being gay. You ain't been hugged. You need a hug. You need a hug. I'm a hug a thug. That's what I'm gonna do. Okay." And we need to teach them how to be loved again, because love is the answer. If a brother can live on one side of the town and another brother can live on the other side, and they hate each other just because of the street they live on, they have lost all compassion to the village. They don't even know what the village means anymore. And so we have to go back and teach them. And that's why when our brothers are incarcerated, that's the best time. Juvenile detention centers, it's the best time to get to them. But we send them to psychologists and put them in classes that don't make sense, and they come out the same because they play the game. If I sit here and be quiet, I'll learn. That's why I told them, let me in the juvenile detention center. I want to get in their heads. I want to get in their heads. When they come out, I want them thinking different. You know, and when I see a young man come out, pull his car over, and run up to me and say, "Hey, man, I'm working now, man. I'm not going to be a slave, man. I'm not going to be a slave to society. I refuse to be that. I'm a king. You taught me how to be a king." We can do that. We can make that happen. And we have to stop all them pharmaceutical drugs that are taking the mentality of our men away. We have to deal with that and show people how to heal themselves in other ways. And so you're absolutely right, Dr. Oliver. We have an opportunity right now to see how many people really want to be correct and really want to do this right. And if we take this on the road and teach our brothers and sisters how to really unite, everybody's not going to do it. And you know who told me that? It was funny. A Somalian brother. He said, "Brother VJ, I'm sorry, man." He said, "I hear you talk about unity, everybody coming together." He says, "But I'm from Africa, and I watch what happens in America. Everybody ain't gonna come together. So we just get what we can and do what we can." And I said, wow, wow. As much as I'd like to say he's wrong, everybody's not gonna come together. But people like-minded like me and you, Dr. Oliver, and others that believe that we have a chance, those fish that we can save, those lives that we can save, that next generation that we can bring up to take our place, because we're not going to be here forever. But if we can bring up another VJ and another Dr. Oliver and another, if we can bring those brothers on up and let them rise up and take our place and continue to build our community, we can make it happen.
Yes, you know, we can make America a great again, you know, when you use that. You know, and I'm gonna ask Stevie to come on because I know you have to leave at 2:30. I'd like you to hear him so you know that your brother is here as well and send
Okay.
it to your thought. But I would just like to, I'm teaching what we call a headwing thought. That's what motivates this seminar is through also our headwing thought. Some of it's called the divine principle, but it's a headwing understanding to try to bring the true unity and resolve all problems. And it's funny, I was reading, I was teaching one brother who is kind of from the hood also, right? And I was teaching him yesterday, and he's eating it up. Oh my God, this is deep. And one of the major, and this is the problem of all humanity from God's point of view, is that God has been waiting and working to bring Adam back as the head of the household. And I read that in the Divine Principle. I said, that's deep. That's all humanity. So how much more this plague in the community playing a critical role in the dysfunction of the community, also the avenue that contributes to the lack of love, you know, to the lack of love in all of this. So we are also happy, and I agree with all what you said, Reverend Smith. So we have to put all these components together and take it on the road, and we will, because we're not having this conversation just for the osmosis of it, but how do we bring it together? But my dear brother, Pastor Stevie Burke, my dear brother, you know, he's the pastor of Christian Christian Life Center
Christian Life Church in Manassas.
in church in Manasseh. Also, one of his strengths over maybe, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years, he's had a men's group talking with men who have gone through a lot of traumatic experience, including violence or whatever. And he has been coaching and a mentor to several men across the country. So I would like to invite our dear brother to share a few pieces with you.
Yeah, I thank you so much, Oliver. I really appreciate every time we get a chance to sit down and talk a little bit about the culture, the counterculture, the council culture, and the subculture that we have to contend with, because all of those cultures impact us as humanity. Counterculture, subculture, council culture, all of those cultures define us as a country, as a nation. I was thinking about this earlier today about what would be my talking point if I had to have some talking points. And I thought about this. First of all, let me give some background. I've been meeting with men across the country for the last 14 years every Monday. During COVID, we went international, so we had Canada come on, and it's exclusively men from every demographic you can think, from PhDs to doctors to anybody in any particular field has been on in our conversation. So we've been doing this for 14 years, so we have a pretty good understanding of what men are dealing with. From pornographic to alcoholism to marital difficulty, anything that men contend with, we've heard it. And so I've been privy to those conversations. And one of the things I find particular about men is that every man wants to be honest. The problem is where can I be honest at and not be condemned for my honesty? I tell guys all the time, if you want to hear a bunch of lies, go to a barbershop. Everybody's trying to outdo everybody at the barbershop. Ain't nobody telling the truth in the barbershop. Now, as you can tell, I haven't been to the barbershop in a while. However, I know men. I've been a man all my life, and I know what we do. So with that said, a lot of the conversation that I'm having with men is, where do we have the opportunity to be transparent, to be vulnerable, and to be honest about ourselves and the trauma that we've dealt with? There are not many places where men can be clearly honest and not be condemned for the act that they're talking about, even the church. And so I think there are three different components to this whole, how do we holistically curb the violence in our country? I think there's three different, if I wanted to describe it like this, I think there are three different areas that we have to look at. And under these umbrellas are various things. And one of them is the spirituality of who we are as a people, the social aspect of us that goes from families to communities to anything that makes up a society, from individuals to families to communities, however you want to categorize that. And the last one is economics. So I think we have to talk about all three of those components in order to heal, because you can't heal anything just from a silo perspective. It has to be a holistic approach. Anytime you take a silo perspective, there are some areas that you're overlooking that needs to be addressed in order to heal a whole man. Mm-hmm. So if you just heal his spirituality and don't talk about his social aspect or his economics, you've only done 1/3 of the work. If you only do the social and the economic, you only done 2/3. So to heal this whole man, you need to talk about his spirituality, how does he function in society as a husband, as a man, and his economic ability to meet the needs of his family as well as himself. So all of these things have to come to the table. The problem is when we come to the table as individuals, we all don't have the same motive. I think motive is critical to those persons who want to take this on the road. If we all have different objectives, then we all have different objectives, and we won't come to one unified way of resolving this problem. So if Oliver has a vision and I have a vision and VJ has a vision, all we have is division. So we all have to have a vision. We all have to be on the same page as far as what are we here for? And what is the end state? And what am I willing to lay down that others can be raised up? So I think we have to address these things personally before we can do this on a larger scale. If my motive isn't pure, you don't want me at the table. Yes, every entity has to be at the table, but not everybody in every entity needs to be at the table because their motives may not be right. So you got to select the right people from each entity to address this situation. So I think that is critical that we look at our individual selves as well as look at the people that come to the table, because again, everybody doesn't have the same motive. And we need that in order to heal us as a people group, as a person. I've had my business for 22 years this year. And I worked for IBM. I started a detail company. And when I did this, the whole mindset was, how do I help men coming out of the system have a sense of identity? So a lot of the brothers that I hired, they weren't PhDs, they weren't college graduates, they had been in the system. And so I took IBM's approach when I started my business, and I started doing things from a corporation standpoint, as far as having, giving them insurance and giving them investment opportunity. What I did was I told them, I said, look, if you've lost your license, whatever your fine is, my company will pay half of it, but you'll have to pay the other half. And we can deduct it out of your pay every week or however you want to set this up. But we will help you regain a sense, ability to move around. So I think as a business owner, we have to be willing to go to that extent to help men recover, especially when we're talking about marginalized men. Once they've been in the system, it's hard to get out of the system and hard to get them out, get the system out of them. Most of them have children that they're behind on their child support. So how do we as business owners help them with that? Because if all of my job is just to help you make money and I don't help you with these other areas of your life, I'm not doing my job to help you recover. So I think there's a plethora of things we need to address and need to do in order to recover these young brothers who are in the streets, who, yes, you may help me socially, but if you don't help me economically and spiritually, I'm not whole. I may be healed, but I ain't whole. So do you want me healed or do you want me made whole? I think we need to make them whole. So if they're whole, then they're not lacking anything. So I agree, Oliver, that I think this can be done, but it has to be done strategically and intentional with everybody at the table with the same motive.
Can I jump in there, Dr. Oliver? Dr. Oliver?
Yes, please jump in.
Yeah, thank you, brother. I think everything that you said is exactly right. Matter of fact, one of the main reasons why we have not done what we were governed to do as the kings of this community is because we allowed the division to happen, because people weren't all on the same page. And I think that is critical. And that's going to continue to happen. When you think about violence in our community, the money that we put into violence interruption and how it's really being spent, there's a lot of things, pros and cons to that, but accountability is key.
Critical.
Accountability is everything. I've had people out on the streets for the last 23 years, and I tell them don't come back without saving a life. And so my fathering group that we had in Minnesota, we had 100 fathers a week that we were dealing with, 100 fathers a week. And we allowed the system to come in to support them to make those men whole. And once the fathers began to be whole, the father would go home and say, well, my woman, she was ghetto when I met her, and I'm trying to change her now. So then we had to adapt to that and help the woman. So once we help the man, you got to go back and help the queen. Then the kids come to daycare and they hear what everybody's saying. You transform the family. This model works. This model, it's not cheap. It's not something you can just do for nothing. You have to invest, reinvest. We got to work with the companies that donate suits and donate dresses. We got to work with the companies that hire our people. We got to work with the colleges and the trade schools and get them to open the doors up to let our people in so they can begin to take the next level up. All that can be done. It's all that model can be there. But the main thing that's important is that everybody's got to be on the same mindset. We've all got to be on the same goal, and we can't be about cutting corners and trying to put up red tape. We have to be about the business of what God has called us to do, which is to save our community. These brothers are waiting to be saved. They really don't know. Some of them don't even know they're waiting to be saved until you open their eyes up. And they go, wow, man, I can tell you how many brothers in jail that I've talked to that said, a man has never really talked to me like that.
Yes.
And so we begin to do exactly what we said. And that bond between us, Dr. Oliver ain't showing no gray hair like me and you, brother, but that's okay. I know he got some somewhere.
It's called cover up.
but that bond, that gray hair, that's that wisdom we got. And when we bring that wisdom together, along with all the people that support us, not just, I'm talking about all the people that are on this call right now, they support the movement of bringing families together at whatever cost necessary. We just need to bring it together as a partnership.
One of the problems I find, and Oliver, excuse me for this, one of the problems I find is that, I have to take everything from a spiritual perspective, being that I'm a pastor and that whole thing. I'm a man, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, I'm a husband, but when I think about this, is that for me, salvation cost Christ. Discipleship cost me. And I don't want to give up my thing to disciple somebody else. You can't disciple somebody if you're not willing to give up some stuff. Your time, your resources, all of those other things, the comforts that you would normally have. When you want to go home, you have to go and make a brother accountable and be accountable to that brother. I think we have to be willing, in order to disciple these young men, is to be able to sacrifice. And not a lot of us want to sacrifice. I had a lady at my house this weekend. Her budget is $100 million. And the budget is for vocation. She said the problem she's having is she can't find young Black men to pay for internship, for fellowship. She can't find them. And her budget is $100 million. And she can't find minority men that will volunteer for these vocations, which is, to me, is a mind-boggling. You got a budget that large and you can't find Black men, young Black boys. Where are you looking? Who's coming to you? Who knows you have this budget? The only reason I knew she had the budget is because she brought it up to me. So I was talking to her about something else. So you've got to get to the grassroots in order to find the weeds.
That's right.
It's hard to see weeds from the airplane. To see weeds, I got to get on the ground. So I was talking to her, and so I said, let me help you, because I meet with men every Monday from across the country, and I'm sure that I can find some men with some young brothers that could benefit from this. And but again, I was fortunate enough to be in her presence, and she spent the weekend with us, and we were talking about some various things. But not everybody knows that she has a budget of $100 million. That's a lot of money. And she's paying for internship. So Oliver, to your point, I think we can do this, but we got to know who the players are. We got to know where to go, and they got to know how to find us. So how do we do this? How do they know where to go and find us, and how do we know how to find them? I think that's a bigger thing as much as is everything else.
Right. And absolutely. And one of the things I saw just in my own mind was, uh, I also have a National Faith-Based Empowerment Coalition. And one thing we wanted to do in the opportunity zone realm was to go on a national tour, coming to different major cities to introduce what is possible. And at the same time, you become a bridge, you know, to those people are island of themselves in Detroit, not knowing that there's a sister organization that is in Sacramento, and how do you bring them in a synergy and working in tandem with each other on a national level, because it's not only a Detroit voice and it's not only a Jersey City voice, it's not only a Sacramento voice, but there needs to be a resonating national voice saying the same thing, you see. And then when we become, satellites accomplishing whatever, like you said, we got to strategically work that out, but also it needs to be a resonating national voice, because it is the national voice who have told those kids that they're not worth anything anyway. They're you're you're hopeless, that kind of thing. But we're not hopeless. I just saw, just to reiterate, teaching this what they call a headwing thought with a brother who is familiar with the hood yesterday, and I didn't have to tell him. When I showed him what God's plan was for Adam and Eve, and that transcends race, culture, is God and humanity, his sons and daughters. When I showed him that piece in his own mouth, he bent over like this and he said, our sub community men are way off course.
Hmm.
And it goes back with what VJ said, because no one is sending them the clarion call. Their original minds are adapt to hear the truth and acquiesce to it if they hear it. So that type of voice is not out there speaking to the God mind of these young men, you see, and young women out there so I just saw that yesterday was very powerful, because he just immediately calculated it and said, oh, we're way off course. And then we have to understand what brought us off course, and those are the entities that we're dealing with. But yeah, I like what you were saying, Pastor Steve Burke, is how do we just come together strategically, package this, and it's going to go in. The gentleman said to me today about an hour or 15, 20 minutes ago, and he said that it takes a drip of water, a consistent drip of water, just one little drip on a cement, on a rock. And if it drips long enough, it will crack the rock.
That's right. Well,
I,
brother,
I, I,
I wanted to say something. I gotta go, but I just wanted to say this. It reminds me of the fact that, and when you talk about the Spirit of God and how powerful it is, so many of our brothers are not connected spiritually, and they need to be. And once we connect them, and once they see that, because they so into this church thing, they forget about God. That, God ain't just about a building. But once we really connect them to that spirit and that feeling of what God can do, we transform them. And I know for a fact, I've seen it happen thousands and thousands of times. I knocked on doors in the neighborhood and found out that the only only 12% of the whole community was churched. So that left 90 something percent of the community unchurched. And that community, that was 12 years ago. And we told them, watch out, it's going to be a problem. They didn't do anything. We told them I asked everybody what they needed. There was no money to even do this research for all the doors I knocked on. So we have to understand that we got the solutions, but we have to be strategic, and we have to be intentional, and we have to come together and be on one accord. So thank you guys. I appreciate you, brother. It was nice connecting with you guys. God bless you.
You know, Oliver. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, my words have to be in concert with my actions.
Yes, sir.
Because the minute I don't look like what I'm saying, now you've caused me to become disengaged with you. So I think too many times we say things that we're not doing, and we're doing things that we're not saying. And I think those two things have to be married. I have to look like what I'm talking about. If I'm really concerned about this brother's success, then I need to look like I'm concerned about his success, not just talk about it. I have to do those things that let him know I care about you, not just in word, but in deed also. So it's one thing to have these conversations. It's another thing to do something, but it all starts with conversation. So at the end of the day, how do we do this as a community of people who are like-minded, have the same motive for the good of others? You know, I was reading a little while ago, and I want to bring this up real quick, and you can have it back. I was looking at Malachi. I was looking at something before we got on, and I was looking at Malachi 6, and it says this, and God brought a charge against the people. He says, I got a charge against you guys. He's talking to Israel. And he says, how can I tolerate your merchants who use dishonest scales and weights? The rich among you become wealthy through extortion and violence. Your citizens are so used to lying that their tongues can no longer tell the truth. And when you look at that, and we look at that as a country, as the United States, right? Our merchants tip the scales. We don't pay dollars, we don't give fair wages. We use people, we extort people. When you look at the rich get richer, and that's what we do. When you live in a country like this, you can do that. And they get that way through extortion and violence. At the end of the day, the citizen, when the lie becomes a truth and the truth becomes a lie, you got a problem. And if God's word be true, and that in and of itself becomes a lie to the people, we all gonna be in trouble. Because God's word sets the standard. And where there's no standard, the people run amok. So there has to be a standard for those of us who are at a table that reflect the God that we speak about. So that when he looks at us, he doesn't look at us with disgust. And they can see us and not see us in disgust as well. So I think for those of us who want to see our people made whole, we got to look like what we're talking about and be honest about it and be willing to be transparent and hear their stories and not condemn them for their stories, but really sit down and hear their stories and want to know, how did you get here? Because if I don't know how you got there, then I don't know where to start with you.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you very much for that. That was profound in itself. And really thank you for the reading. And so I think we are all on the right track. I saw on with Donnie Avey, and she was giving a suggestion when we're talking about going on the road and bringing these prolific points that you had mentioned, Pastor Burke, to the table of creating a strategic plan. She said navigation centers to offer resource connection. We have that. So we have to put, like you said, it has to be a whole picture navigation center, and a whole picture resource. And that's why I like our previous speaker, Pamela, and others. I was looking at one, and I'm going to have her on, and she is part of the the task force in Detroit, and she's similar to Pamela, looking at the whole picture, looking at the whole community. And I think that some of these areas that we need to address have not been addressed, and I believe that they play an intricate role in the whole picture, bringing the whole picture as a resource to heal community. So really grateful to all that was shared with us. Um, as Dr. Madeline, you're on mute.
What do you see as the end state?
Me,
Yeah.
I see that I see the beginning state that will dictate the end state. You see, so the beginning state is how do we look at all the avenues that we were discussing, putting into proper, like a product category. Some of those areas are gray areas because, as Dr. V.J. Smith was saying, some of them are designed to be gray areas, but they actually become very pertinent points. So if we can bring all those together and understand how to deal with the whole person and the whole community, then it's easier to dictate the vision of the outcome. We need an outcome, right? So the only way we get an outcome is really honestly, and you were saying with men, we're not, we're under this whole facade of what a man should be. So he's under that facade. Therefore, he's not able to express his true emotions or his true feelings. And then he stays stuck in dysfunction, right? So the same thing in our communities, the same thing in our greater communities, the same thing, that our greater community to how to it play a more critical role in the healing process. It's not just that subculture community in these at-risk community areas, but it's also, I believe, as I said before, it's the greater community. It's the American society as a whole. How do they play a role in the healing process of the sub community which they are part of and they are complaining that they're affected by, right? How do
Mhm.
you do that? So I see the end dealing with, you can't get to the end if you don't understand the root. And you can't delete some aspects of the root to try to get to the end. And that is when the problem. So I just see this as being hopeful. I like the components. I love what you just said in the past. We're dealing with the counter, the sub, and the counseling culture. You know, that's a very powerful, those three powerful points that you've made. Anybody else would like to share? And you can share anything or ask Pastor Burke any questions. Uh, when Dr. Madeline, she says we have to catch the fish before we can clean the fish. Uh, do you want to share what that means to you?
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes. Uh, it goes along with what Pastor Burke was saying earlier. He worked with these men that are coming out of prison that have been in prison. There are so many needs that they have. So before we come on board with IR deals and lending that helping hand, then we have to do the survey to see what is needed. Yes, we want to be able to treat them holistically. We want to treat the whole person. But in that process, we have to find out what they're facing. So let's just say that a person has a need for a job. Before we can start talking to him or her about anything else, we got to look at their marketable skills and talk to them about their marketable skills. Some guys are marketable and have no idea. Those drug dealers are true entrepreneurs. They're just selling the wrong product. So in that process, they have the skill. It's about reteaching them in a place that make them feel comfortable. Again, like Pastor Steve said, a safe place. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Every state have churches, have boys and girls clubs, have so many other entities that are working with the youth. How to get the youth off the street. Sometimes, I'm a pastor as well, Pastor Steve. In the process, we got to speak their language. Even Jesus said, when you go and knock on doors 2 by 2s, if they don't receive me, shake the dust off your feet and go to the next person. Because you might not get that person at that door, but if you knock on the next door, if those people receive, the ones that didn't are going to want to know what's going on with them. Something has changed. So I think to go out on the road, to take this on the road, I think we need to contact different states, different cities, the major states and cities, and see what they're doing and how can we support them. In that process of supporting them, the new information might be more readily received. So I think we all have good points. I think we're all of one mindset. The young lady with the $1 billion, tell her to put 1 million of it in my account and let me work it. Amen.
I think that is so true. My thing is, and you talk about going fishing. Sometimes we go fishing with the wrong equipment. You don't go fishing with a gun.
Absolutely.
So we have to know, based on what we're fishing for, what bait is needed to catch the fish that we want.
Right.
Absolutely. And
So-
in that, reaching out to different churches, boys' schools, girls' schools, different entities, because with youth projects, every city has some type of youth project. Reach out to them and see what their foundation is, see how their goals and values will line up with our goals and values, and how we can, for lack of a better word, how we can integrate with them to pull out the best human being we could possibly pull out. One thing about change, I'll speak for myself. I remember going to a girlfriend's house, me and this girlfriend, we would hang out, we would have fun, we would talk, we would laugh for hours. I went to her house one day and we were having a conversation and she just looked at me and she said, "Girl, you done went and got saved." So one thing about it, when a person has been in the company of anointed people, when a person has been loved, it's radiance. It comes out. People are drawn to us and they want to know, what is it that you have that I don't have? For the young people, I have children, I have grandchildren, and when I talk to them, it is a new language. So the scripture comes in, but we can't read the scripture to them out of the King James Version because we'll lose them immediately. But if we go into the English version or if we go into the new translation, that might be a little bit more receptive. So we have to figure out, number one, the need of the community through the entities that are already in that community. And I think we'll be able to go in and build out from there.
Oliver, you're muted, Oliver.
And here,
Just we have a few other people I want to get them. Don't worry. I got you, Edwards, and I got you, Rosalind. Just 1 second. Yeah, you're right. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. You're absolutely right. That's why I mentioned Pamela. She's in Jersey City. I want to correct. There's another sister named Aaliyah Harvey Quinn. She's in Detroit, and they have
can you just wait a minute?
results because
Yeah.
they're showing you how they have touched you. And we can. And you know what? I like
need
what
a
she
lot of
said.
water right now. I'll give it to you when
Somebody
I know you're ready.
can go on mute, please. Who mentioned water? Now, what I like and what we can do is when she said there are some aspects or one category of what she's already outreached and done, but another organization now has come and doing the same. She didn't find that as a threat. She finds that is that they're helping to complement and helping her to embellish some areas that expand that area and
Yes.
capturing more people. And that's what we want to go and look at as well. So I want to thank you for your statement. Also, I want to go to Rodney, and he wants to say something. And then also Rosalind Clay, she made a statement. So I think I addressed Wayne's point. There are organizations that have results. Even Pastor Burke has a result. If you go deeper in Mrs. Dr. Clark Alexander, she has some results. Okay, Rodney.
Work with at-risk children in Detroit, Michigan, and I was trying to form coalitions with different groups to help support the different activities for the youth. And I was working with trying to form bridges between the parents and the children. There's so much confusion, misunderstanding, and division between the children and the parents. And I was able to get to the point where the trust was beginning to be developed between the parents and the children. Because at that point, the director of the social service agency called me in for a meeting. And she said, Rodney, you're in the wrong field. We're trying to educate people. So I said, but it's needed. So no, you don't do that in social work. And it broke my heart. I just reached a point where the trust was being restored. So at that point, because of what I was doing, then I fit the model. So I can see how those agencies also, those directors, they need to be educated. They need to be broader in their thinking.
Again, I think it goes to the point. Not everybody has the same motive.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah.
It's critical. Now that the prison system has been, you can own a prison. So if I own a prison, what's my bottom line? Making money. How do I make money? Keeping prisoners.
That's
So
right.
now I have to devise a scheme to create prisoners to fill my prison so I can make money. So I think the only way we can resolve this issue is one person at a time. We can't do this in a group setting. We can't do this in a coliseum. It has to start with one person's heart at a time. So if each one of us took someone and then we all took someone and we all took someone, we could make a change almost immediately. The problem is that all of us has a particular bias. And sometimes that bias will prevent me from discipling somebody who doesn't fit my narrative of redemption. And I see that repeated over and over and over again. When we look at people from a class system or a lack system or whatever the look may look like, it can create a bias in us. And sometimes it's an unconscious bias. I don't even know I'm biased about a particular thing. And so how do I minister to somebody that I'm biased about, that I have a bias about?
Right.
I've been on this platform since Roe v. Wade was overturned, right? And so I found myself, I've been in the community of people that don't look like me that have asked me to come and speak from the viewpoint of the trauma that men have from abortion. So I've been in Naples, Florida. I was interviewed across the country and in Canada about how do men recover from abortion? That has never been part of the conversation. It's usually about the child or the woman. And it's almost as though the man becomes obsolete once she makes a decision. So how does he recover? What's his language? Is there anybody to listen to him? Does he have somewhere to go to complain about his griefs? The system isn't designed for him to take her to court to keep his child. But it's designed for him to pay for a child that he doesn't want her to keep. So the narrative has got to change at some critical point. Men hear men. Women hear women. I'm not biased about women, but a man will hear another man. But that man has to be willing to be transparent, honest, and vulnerable in order for him to hear him. And so, again, I think this is doable. This is doable, but we can only do it one person at a time if we have a pure motive and we're gonna love them to the end. Not when it gets hard, not when it's inconvenient for me. We gotta be willing to go all the way to the end, at least until I reach my point and now I can hand them off to somebody else who has the same heart set and mindset, because I'm limited in my skill set, but I know somebody else who's further advanced in a particular skill set than I am, so I can hand them off to that person. So collectively, we can make him whole. It takes all of us to make just one of us.
Thank you so much for that. Roxanne Clay, you had a point to make.
This is for Pastor Burke and also for Dr. Alexander. You know, as a single mother, I had one boy that I kept from being incarcerated because he had come up on the property with a sawed-off rifle, and he was gonna have his younger brother to fight, encourage him to fight another boy in that development, which was a Section 8 where we were living. And I was asleep on the sofa, and I woke up and heard a lot of commotion and went out there and saved his life and told him to leave the property. And I actually had to get him to leave my home and put him in a home where there was a father of one of my relatives, but the child had a father, and the man was very nicely took him in, and that saved his life because he had a father. He had a father figure. I believe a father figure is so important in youth in their lives. A woman cannot do it all because they need the love and embrace of the father. That love is what was missing, and today it's still missing in him. He has refused today to live in any community where there are Black people. He only lives in white community. And he has made himself very successful financially, but inside he's rotten. He's hurting. Inside his internal self, he says, "Mom, I don't feel any value within myself. I still can't." And he's become so obese and just not self-worth, even though he's very rich and has live in a mansion, and it's like, but he's still so broken because of the love he missed from his father. So another thing I wanted to bring up from Miss Alexander, it's not just boys who are hurting, it's daughters who miss their father.
Absolutely.
I'm going to tell you something. My daughter misses her father. She's so adamant today. She's 33 years old and still wouldn't marry because she hadn't felt the love from her father. Okay. And to Pastor Burke, I want to tell you, I believe, sir, that you can have a platform for young men and that they can come together and they can rub off on each other and mend each other's hearts. Why? Because they're going through different things. And just like any religious platform, which we have so many of for our own children here, especially unification, so many beautiful youth programs and so many, they struggle, but once they go to these seminars, they come out washed and so revived and so changed because they hear the testimonies of each other, and they bridge the love to each other, and they learn so much and they change. And so I believe we need to have this as well. Why can't we go into these projects and these places where they're broken children, find the ones who will participate in these seminars? Not all of them will be saved, but then there are those who are willing to find some type of result or place somebody to just let me change, God, don't put me in a mental institution. Oh, like my daughter, she like, I'm just hearing voices and I'm just going, I don't know what's wrong. I'm just so sorry. And she tries to reach out to, they're under trauma, these people who've gone through trauma and, first thing the social worker did, well, okay, blah, 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 give her some drugs or something to help her. And the psychologist is like, they don't help people. They can't reach the heart that we can reach. It's an internal revolution or something that we need to just reach out to them, to have them know something substantial that they can trust again. Are you really going to be there? Is this true, or are you just faking again? Or, you know, what is true love? Okay.
Yeah, thank you,
We have,
thank
yeah.
thank you, Rosalind, for what you just shared. We're getting a little out of time, but I just want to thank you for your honest sharing with us today, because that makes the difference. That we're talking about the voices in those who are hurting in that realm, but to hear the voice itself, it makes a difference, a really different. Go ahead, Pastor. As we
I want to say
come,
something to Oliver real quick because I heard her heart, right?
sure.
So these are the moments that we recover people. So her son is in a very lonely place, even though we met one third of his holistic approach, the economic side of it. But there's a spiritual component and there's a social component that he is lacking, which makes him feel this way, that he is devalued. So it's in moments like this that we have to immediately address the need. And there's a huge need because she has a daughter and a son. So, Miss Rosalind, I'm going to give you my number. I sent you my number, right? In the chat. So write my number down and call me so I can give you information for Man Up Monday so your son can come on. And I think this is how we fix the problem. We hear these things and then we move to the next thing instead of addressing it immediately. Because again, it's one person at a time. And so I don't want this moment to get by me where I may be able to help her in the situation that she's in with her children, when I may be able to help her and with a resolve to this. But at least give her some hope that somebody heard her, somebody sees her. And again, I think that is critical that we hear people and see people, and we really come to their rescue sooner than later. Because if it's later, it could have cost not only their life, but the lives of others innocently.
Very much for that, and thank you, Rosalind, for your honesty, and it makes a difference. And these are realities that we can face. I want to thank Dr. Madeline Clark again for always your incredible input that you've always shared throughout the course of all of these seminars and webinars that we've been having. And again, Stevie Burke, I finally got you. It's been a while. I've been chasing him down, and finally I got him. But he is a prolific brother. We have wonderful conversations, and we will do great things together. We do want to thank Reverend Jenkins. He has come on. If we want to have some greetings, we would love to have you to help close us out, if you like. Dr.
Oh, I
Jenkins,
thank
of
you.
course, is
Thank
the
you, Reverend
international
Oliver. And
president.
thank you, Reverend Stevie Burke. Your insights are incredible. We want to build a kind of a family relationship among all of these great leaders like Dr. V.J. Smith and Reverend Oliver and all the Dr. Madeline Alexander. We need everybody together, and there's so many various approaches that are being highlighted even today. I love your reaching out for that wonderful, extra effort to reach the son of Miss Clay. I think that's unbelievable. That's what we need. We need one-on-one. Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Oliver.
Okay.
And real quick, Dr. Oliver, Miss Rosalind, I put my number in the chat as well. Reach out to me in reference to your daughter. I think internally, if she would start to journal and connect with her 6-year-old self, write that letter, talk about some things, because a lot of times we hold on to that trauma. We hold on to the hurt and pain. And as we grow, we just continue to fester that. So her hearing the voices, I understand that process. So give me a call and we can talk about it a little bit deeper.
And one thing that Rosalind did say that was pertinent is that the male is not only the men, but also the women. And if we can also strengthen the women, we also can strengthen the men as well. I just
Yes.
want to And so, thank you so much. It just was, Dr. Jenkins, we just had a wonderful meeting and insights, and we want to continue them. And they're not
Thank you,
just
Reverend Oliver.
insights just to put on a table,
Yes.
but put into action. So I want to thank everyone. Everybody's been great. I hope we were able to answer a lot of the questions that were up on the chat pertinent to them. But thank you, Rodney. Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Thank you. What did where did Stevie Burke? Where did you go? Anyway,
Yeah.
and okay, because you left me. The
I'm right beside you on my screen.
okay, and also Madeline Clark. Everyone, thank you so much. Next week, to be announced, we have some other people that will be coming on. I had a great talk. I'm going to try to get the guy from Safe Streets in Baltimore. We had a wonderful conversation here in my office about an hour ago, and I would love to get him on. God bless you, everyone. Thank you so much for
God
coming,
bless.
and
Take
we
care.
will do great things. Bye bye.
Amen. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Blessings, everybody.
God
Keep
bless.
hope alive.
God bless.
Great program, Reverend Oliver.
Okay, very good.
Yes,
Excellent.
thank you, Reverend Oliver,
Yeah.
for sharing your platform.
We're thinking about Las
Yes,
Vegas,
thank
how
you.
it
Have a
can all
BBD,
connect.
beautifully blessed day, everyone. Have a BBD,
Okay.
beautifully blessed
Thank
day.
you.
Okay, Leslie.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Leslie.
Yeah.
We have to talk about that. Thank you.
That's true.
Okay,
Okay, Wayne.
very good.
Everybody, thank
You take care of Florida, you too.
We're working on it.
Donna, thank you for coming on. Avi.
That's safe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your program.
Many blessings.
See this Philadelphia. That's
Thank
Yeah.
you.
We go.
Very good, Barbara. God bless.
You too.
Okay, God bless
Leslie.
everyone.